Brazil launched Friday a global fund to protect the tropical forests at the United Nations Climate Change Conference COP30 and called for a plan to overcome dependence on fossil fuels. In Colombia, on Friday, families and social leaders from La Guajira have condemned the operations of the United States in the Caribbean and are demanding justice for the murder of fellow citizens. And Türkiye issues arrest warrants for genocide against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and senior officials. Hello and welcome to From the South, from the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba. My name is Pablo Micheliche. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Brazil launched Friday a global fund to protect tropical forests at the United Nations Climate Change Conference COP30 and called for a plan to overcome dependence on fossil fuels. The Brazilian president said that the fund is aimed at preserving more than 1 billion hectares of forests with an investment of up to $125 million. Da Silva described the initiative as unprecedented and stressed that forests are worth more standing than felt and that the countries of the Global South will be the protagonists. During his speech, the Brazilian president blamed the conflict in Ukraine for the reopening of coal mines and criticized the expense in producing weapons in the context of global warming. And precisely on Friday, the climate summit in Brazil came to an end. This event, which preceded COP30, will serve as a guide for the negotiators who will be meeting starting next week. Once again, the Global South made its presence felt in speeches calling for a more just world. Details in the following report by our colleagues André Vieira and Sebastián Soto.
The world's largest rainforest is the epicenter of debates on how to confront the climate crisis in the coming days. Anadina, a cleaning assistant at COP30, is one of the nearly 50 million people who live in the Amazon.
The Amazon needs to live. The Amazon needs to breathe. That is what I think. I hope everything goes well at this COP.
COP30 negotiations will officially begin next Monday, but the Climate Summit, a precursor to the conference that brings together representatives from more than 140 countries in Belém do Pará, has already resulted in a first concrete action, the creation of the Rainforests Forever Fund.
It is a global financing architecture to protect the tropical forests of more than 70 countries around the world, which will begin operating at COP30 with the contribution of resources.
At the closing of the Climate Summit, countries in the Global South once again raised their voices to denounce the actions of an economic system that destroys humanity and nature.
A voracious imperialism hungry for oil and resources, which instead of correcting itself to curb climate change has become more ferocious and inhumane. This imperialism does not send vessels to the Caribbean to help repair the damage caused by climate change, but to threaten, besiege, and plunder the natural resources of our sovereign nations, as is the case in Venezuela.
This Friday was marked by the debate on the energy transition. For it to be effective, a change in priorities is needed from the richest countries, and support for the poorest nations.
Spending twice as much on weapons as we do on climate action is paving the way toward climate apocalypse. It is essential to combat all forms of energy poverty.
É fundamental. Reforçamos igualmente.
We are also strengthening our efforts in the area of renewable energies, especially solar energy, to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. Your Excellencies, these national efforts require predictable and fair financial support.
Según la Agencia Internacional de Energía,
According to the International Energy Agency, fossil fuels still account for 81.5% of primary energy. In this context, 2 billion people do not have adequate fuel for cooking, and 200 million children attend schools without energy. COP30 should both advance the energy transition and democratize access to this resource.
André Vieira e Sebastião Soto, teleSUR, Brasil.
Nicaraguan commerce prepares for a dynamic holiday season as the country embraces also the Christmas atmosphere. In Managua, our correspondent Kenia Doña has the story.
El comercio nicaragüense se prepara para la temporada.
Nicaraguan commerce prepares for the year-end season, one of the busiest for sales, reflecting the constant dynamism of the national economy.
People have been coming to the market to buy, as I told you, since September. So that indicates to us that the economy is doing well, and I think it's been improving and will continue to improve.
At the end of October, people already start buying. Right now, what they're looking for the most are decorations for the schools, but after this, people start looking for lights, garlands, and curtains, which they use for the Greater A celebration. Yes, in fact, we Nicaraguans are already prepared to come and buy, and to anticipate our businesses and have a huge variety for all our customers. We have sold a lot. Customers come from Honduras, Costa Rica, and Guatemala.
Según el Banco Central de Nicaragua,
according to the Central Bank of Nicaragua, the economy is expected to maintain steady growth between 3% and 4% throughout 2025. The commercial sector projects sales of $158 million in the last quarter of the year, a figure that reflects confidence and the strengthening of economic activity, driven by the efforts of Nicaraguan entrepreneurs and merchants.
de los emprendedores y comerciantes de Nicaragua.
We have a projection of around 116 million to 129,000 US dollar. Since last year we were at about 105,417,000 US dollar. And I believe that with all the logistics capacity we have, with the merchants being prepared, and the models that our good government has been providing, that's why we're seeing this boost today. We've also started selling online.
Alongside the economic dynamism in Nicaragua, the country has been illuminated with a Christmas atmosphere. Families are enjoying the decorations and spaces filled with love, unity, and hope. Yes, there are quite a few new things, in fact, and everything is really beautiful. This transmits peace, joy. Yes, peace, joy, and well, those who enjoy it are the ones who matter.
Ellos son lo importante, lo que lo disfrutan.
De felicidad, Navidad.
Happiness, Christmas. You can already feel the Christmas spirit. It feels good, prosperous, and blessed. The peace that only our good government has given us.
Solo nuestro buen gobierno nos ha dado.
En esta temporada de alto dinamismo
in this season of high economic dynamism and Christmas spirit, Nicaraguans reaffirm their desire to continue living in joy and peace, strengthening the bonds of unity and hope that characterize families across the country.
Kenia Doña, teleSUR, Nicaragua.
And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates and much more. We will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Brazil, Judge Alexandre de Moraes voted against the appeals of former President Jair Bolsonaro and in favor of upholding his conviction for attempted coup d'etat. De Moraes confirmed the sentence of 27 years and 3 months in prison, asserting that the argument presented by the defense did not contradiction or omission in the sentence handed down by the court is unsustainable. The rapporteur in the criminal case against Bolsonaro affirmed that the former president's authorship of the crimes was proven and that he also exercised leadership of the armed criminal organization. Meanwhile, his supporters invaded the seat of the three branches of government and destroyed public property while spreading a false narrative of electoral fraud in 2022. The first chamber of the Supreme Court began hearing the appeals, known as requests for clarification, this Friday in a virtual plenary session. In Colombia on Friday, families and social leaders from La Guajira have condemned the operations of the United States in the Caribbean and are demanding justice for the murder of fellow citizens. The so-called anti-narcotics operation by the Department of Defense in the Caribbean and Pacific waters have been labeled as illegal by the United Nations and the International Criminal Court. In this regard, the governments of the Caribbean, Venezuela, and Colombia have firmly rejected this deployment, which violates all international legality. In this context, Colombia's public television broadcasted the testimony of the family of Alejandro Carranza, one of the fishermen killed in an airstrike ordered by President Donald Trump against a small fishing boat, demanding transparency and justice for the extrajudicial executions perpetrated by the United States in the Caribbean waters. Now in Venezuela, more than 100 young people from the youth school in the commune Aguerridos Tamanco graduated in arts and trades, strengthening communal power. The consultation, driven by social organizations and popular power, allowed the initiative to create a space for technical and artistic training aimed at steering youth away from violence and providing them with tools for productive development to be heard and funded. Additionally, it is important to highlight that this Youth Art and Trade School is one of the projects approved and prioritized during the Youth Popular Consultation. The event featured an exhibition of the works created by the students, as well as a cultural showcase symbolizing the union of art and trade as pillars for building a more prosperous and peaceful society. And the Russian government ratified its support for Venezuela and urged the United States to reorient the fight against drugs within its elite. Russia's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said that they are closely monitoring tensions in the Caribbean, where the situation continues to escalate. The official emphasized that Moscow will always defend the stable development of the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the resolution of all differences by peaceful and civilized means. Zakharov affirmed that they are in contact with the Venezuelan government and that Moscow is willing to respond appropriately to Caracas' request, taking into account the current challenges. And we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you will be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. For a short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In the United States, the federal government shutdown continues, and while Democrats and Republicans failed to reach an agreement, disadvantaged communities are doing everything they can to put food on the table, as food stamps are still being withheld in violation of a federal judge order. Our correspondent in New York, Henry Camelo, gives us the details of this difficult situation.
Mientras en la cúpula del poder en Washington, miembros de
At the top of the power structure in Washington, members of the Democratic and Republican parties continue to disagree about the national budget. Miles away from the Capitol, entire communities are still not receiving food stamps from the SNAP program, despite President Trump's claim that they would be paid in part. For Andrea, this is yet another life from Donald Trump.
Among our acquaintances, friends, and co-workers here, we haven't heard of anyone receiving anything. At least I haven't been paid anything. And, well, it's only a few days, and, as I say, we have to find a way to survive.
Y en busca de cómo sobrevivir en estas bajas
And in search of ways to survive in these low temperatures, hundreds of families who have not received food stamps form long lines at food banks, even bringing their young children with them to take a meal home.
Vi la fila y quise participar en ella.
I saw the line and wanted to join it to seek what others are seeking. Well, not very good, but we have to keep going.
Hay que seguir adelante.
Según la organización pro-inmigrante,
According to the pro-immigrant organization, there are currently 1.5 million people in New York who do not have enough to eat 3 times a day. Pedro Rodriguez, director of this organization, attests to this.
The US government still has $43 million sitting there waiting to be used, which, by the way, if the government shuts down, and they have that money here, they don't want to use it. Why? Because they want children to go hungry, they want senior citizens to go hungry, they want families to go hungry. Is that okay? No, it's very wrong. They put that money aside to do it, to use it for this, and they don't want to use it. They just don't want to use it. It's like if a mother said, no, I'm not going to feed my children. I have the money here in my pocket, and I'm going partying. That's what they're doing, and it's the saddest thing in the world. What is sad is that the largest country in the world, the most established democracy, cannot reach an agreement, overcome the divisions between the two parties to approve a national budget, the consequences of which we are already seeing. However, I believe that the result of Tuesday's elections will promote the speeding up of negotiations and the reaching of some kind of agreement.
Y mientras en las mesas de los poderosos.
And while there is no hunger at the tables of the powerful and no talk of food stamps, in the other United States, hunger cannot wait. Did you ever think you would be asking for food at a center like this?
No. I never thought the economy would be like this. Remember, we came from our countries looking for a better economy for our families, a better opportunity for our families, and that dream that sometimes in our countries, the American dream is sometimes unfortunately not like that. We came to live a very different reality.
Una realidad que presidente Donald Trump.
A reality that President Donald Trump insists on maintaining while he appeals the decision of a federal judge ordering him to immediately pay the full amount of food stamps that by law belong to those most in need.
Pablo Daniel Ho y Henry Camelo, teleSUR, Nueva York.
In the United States, a federal judge in Oregon on Friday blocked Donald Trump from deploying National Guard troops to Portland. District Court Judge in Oregon, Karim Imagot, a Trump appointed, blocked the deployment of National Guard troops to Portland. In her final ruling, Imagot determined there was not evidence of widespread violence that would justify federal intervention. She found that protests near Portland's Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility were predominantly peaceful. Earlier this week, Imagot had already prevented the Trump administration from deploying the National Guard to Portland, stating that she found no credible evidence that protests in that city had spread out of control. This is the latest development in a series of legal back and forth involving Portland, Chicago, and other U.S. cities as the Trump administration has sought to federalize and deploy the National Guard to quell protests. Türkiye issues arrest warrants for genocide against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and senior officials. Among the 37 suspects listed are Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz, National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, and Army Chief Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, according to a statement from the Istanbul Prosecutor's Office. Turkey has accused the officials of genocide and crimes against humanity that Israel has perpetrated systematically in Gaza. It is important to note that Turkey last year joined South Africa's case, accusing Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, has stated that 1 in 5 children in the Gaza Strip has now received essential vaccines. This vaccination campaign comes after 2 years of Israeli aggression that caused a total collapse of the healthcare system and interrupted the immunization programs, depriving thousands of children of their essential vaccines. According to reports, 1 in 5 children have not received essential vaccines, representing 47% of the total population of the Gaza Strip, which equates to approximately 980,000 children. For its part, UNRWA will contribute through 24 health centers and medical points in the Gaza Strip, supporting this vital effort to restore essential care to the children of Gaza. And with that information, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Pablo Michelice. Thank you for watching.